Okay, perfect. Types of natural selection. There are three main types. And what I want to start off with is, just as a reference, is I'm going to have three different colors of moth, but they're the same species. Okay? If I had a black person, I had a white person, I had a Hispanic person, it doesn't matter. We're all Homo sapiens. We can all breed with each other. That's the point of being the same species. You can breed with each other and produce offspring. So these moths, despite the fact they have different phenotypes, different colors, they're the same species. Got it? So one of the moths is a black moth. And this is just going to be something I'm going to reference throughout these three types of natural selection examples. Then we have another moth that is a white moth. And then we have a third moth in the middle that is an intermediate, which is gray. You all should know that when you mix white, like white paint and black paint, you'll make gray paint. So this is going to be the intermediate. So we have one extreme phenotype. We have the other extreme phenotype. And then we have the intermediate phenotype. These are all the same species. The black can mate with the white, the gray and the black, the gray and the white, doesn't matter. Okay, the first type of natural selection is called stabilizing selection. In stabilizing selection, the selective pressures favor the intermediate phenotype. This means that individuals that are the intermediate phenotype are the most biologically fit in this particular environment. They had the best chance to reproduce. They had the best chance to produce offspring. That is the definition of being biologically fit. You can make it to reproductive age and reproduce. And in a stabilizing selection pattern, the gray moths would be the best. So there are little graphs that are associated with these types of natural selection. You guys are not going to have to calculate any sort of tangent or slope or rise and all that stuff. You're just going to need to remember which pattern is associated with each type of natural selection. So we're going to need to draw an X and Y axis, and the Y axis is always going to be the percent of the population, 1 through 100, or 0 through 100. And then I'm just going to make something up, okay? I'm going to say that in Tampa, Florida, in 1950, women preferred men that were 5'8". This means that men that were 5'8" had the best chance to have a partner. So we're going to say 5'8" is right here in the middle. We're going to say 6'2" is over here as an extreme on the tall side, and we're going to say 5 foot even is an extreme on the short side. So we have short men, we have tall men, we have intermediate men. In the year 1950, women in Tampa preferred the intermediate, so this is going to be the bell curve. Now, first mistake I've shared with you is that students, when they were asked, what do you mean by types of natural selection? These are the types. Here's the second mistake. Birthday girl. Right here. Are there men, according to this curve, that are in existence that are 5 feet tall? Yes. So it's not 0. Correct. A lot of students that came before you guys would look at 5 foot or 6'2" and say there's nothing there. It's 0. They're gone. They don't exist. Not true. You have to read the graph correctly. The AP exam is big, big, big on correctly reading graphs. There are men that are 5 foot, and there are men that are 6'2". There's just not a lot of them. It's a low percentage. There are a lot of men that are 5'8". Why? Because that is the most biologically fit height at the time. Okay? Questions? That's it. Number 2, directional selection. A previously stable population shifts the mean, or the average, you all hopefully know what a mean is the average, towards one of the extremes. A previously stable population shifts the mean towards one of the extremes. So if we go back up to our moths, for example, the gray phenotype is no longer in favor. Let's say it's wintertime, everything is covered in snow, the white is now the most biologically fit. So here is a x and y axis. The y-axis is always going to be the percentage of the population. And let's say that we have the 5', even men, we have the 5'8" men, and we have the 6'2" men. Well, in 1950, women preferred 5'8". So let's label that graph 1950. Well, let's say in the year 2020, it turns out that men that are taller seem to just have a higher status in society. They have better jobs. They're nicer to the ladies. So they are going to be more biologically fit. This is the year 2020. This is known as directional selection, where the more biologically fit phenotype is one of the extremes. It has shifted from intermediate to extreme. Now, as I was just asking Risa, there are guys that are 5 feet. There are guys that are 5'8". There are just more that are 6'2" now. My point I'm trying to make is don't think that just it's all or none. Do not have the mindset of all or none. All the men here are not 6'2". There are men of every height. There are just more men that are 6'2", because it's the most biologically fit height. Now, there's another way you can look at this graph. There's actually 2 other ways. You can look at it like this. So we got 5'0", 5'8", 6'2". You can look at it like this. Whoop, there it is. Let's flip it. You might think, oh, well, okay, well, it can't be the other one. No, it could be the other way too. Let's say women started liking short guys. They were most biologically fit for whatever reason. So it can go in either direction. So long as it's one of the extremes. That's the moral of the story. That's the definition of this type of natural selection. One of the extremes is the most advantageous. It's the most biologically fit. Okay. And then third and finally, we have disruptive selection. In this form of natural selection, the extremes are favored. Both extremes, plural, extremes are favored, which means that they are more biologically fit than the intermediate. So I'm going to go away from height, and I'm going to do another example. We're going to do fish. Just like the moths, all these fish are the same species, just different genotypes. Phenotypes. 3 different fish, different phenotypes. Same species. Okay? So first off, we have let's make our X and Y axis here. We have a brown fish. This fish is very dark, and it lives near the bottom of a lake. And it lives at the bottom of the lake because it can camouflage in the shadows and in the branches that are at the bottom of the water. And that's going to really help it avoid predators. So that's a pretty good phenotype to have. On the opposite end, we're going to have this yellow fish with orange stripes. Remember, these are the same species, same species. These two could breed with each other. Now, I'm going to give you guys a lesson within a lesson. You don't have to write this word down. There's a concept in nature called aposematic coloration. This basically means warning colors. Have you ever heard of a poison dart frog or a poison dart toad? They are very brightly colored. They're beautiful frogs. They're bright red, blue, green. They look like neon lights, but they're venomous. The reason they're called poison dart frogs is the natives in Central and South America would rub them on the tips of their spears and arrows and shoot them at their enemies. Their enemies wouldn't die from the impact of the bow or the arrow or the spear. They would die from the poison that was from the frog's skin. Well, that coloration is nature's way of saying stay away. Nature only shows bright colors on animals, typically when they're venomous or dangerous. Think of a love bug that we get twice a year. They're black and orange. Black and orange is a very popular combination in nature to avoid. There's another animal called a monarch butterfly. A monarch butterfly is black and orange, and birds hate it because it tastes so bad. Well, there's another butterfly that looks just like the monarch butterfly called the viceroy butterfly. It is also orange and black. It is nearly the same pattern. It actually tastes pretty good. But the birds think that it's a monarch butterfly and they avoid it. That is called mimicry. This fish here is expressing mimicry, where it is not venomous, it is not dangerous, but it looks like something that is. And so when it is that coloration, that's being pretty biologically fit. It's not going to be messed with by predators. And then we have the intermediate phenotype, orange fish. Turns out, predators in this lake can only see one color. Guess what that color is? Orange. And so this fish is not really what you want to be. That color, I mean. So we have the y-axis, percent of population. And Duncan, what do you think the curve is going to look like if both extremes are favored, but the intermediate is not favored? It's going to dip in the middle. That's right. It's going to look like this. Risa, are there orange fish in this pond?
Yeah.
Are there a lot of them? No. Be sure you all remember the difference between there are some there, they're just not present. Yes, Annie? Okay, I'll take it back. The predators are attracted to orange. Let's put it like that. Fair point. Okay, so these are the three different types of natural selection: disruptive, directional, and stabilizing. Okay? Now, are there any questions about those three? All right. We're going to transition a little bit to reproductive selection, how males and females choose each other. So you got a few vocab terms here. We have something known as assortative mating. Now, I mentioned once or twice I have a golden retriever, big old 86-pound doofus. And when I'm walking him, we cross paths with a lot of other dogs, bulldogs, shih tzus, papillons, little purse dogs. They go, yeah. My dog could care less about those, but when he sees a golden retriever, he flips his lid. He is so in love with other goldens. This is kind of known of as assortative mating, where individuals tend to only have interest or mate with other individuals that look like them. They have the same phenotype. Individuals tend to mate with their same phenotype. Okay, and then we're going to get to sexual selection. This is why a lot of male animals, mammals in particular, have horns and antlers and tusks and spikes and all these different weaponry to fight other males, because they have to be the best. They have to show they're most biologically fit to get the girl. This is selection aimed at producing the most biologically fit offspring. Two deer fight each other. They're fighting for a female. The female is going to be more inclined to reproduce with the winner, because the winner has just demonstrated he's stronger, he's more resilient, is more aggressive. Those are all traits that enhance your survivability and increase your biological fitness. So we have male and female sexual selection. We'll start with female sexual selection first. What do you all think is more important on the grand scheme of things? The mate that females choose? Let me rephrase that. What do you think is more important to ensure biological fitness? The mate that females choose or the mate that males choose? Why the females? Touchdown. You want to teach the class? You've got it. Females are more picky, and it is why this is considered most important. If you couldn't hear Jasmine, I'll repeat what she said. She's dead right. Females have a finite amount of gametes, which are egg cells for females. You all will run out one day, and so it's pretty crucial that you carpe diem, seize the day. You don't waste them. You want to try to have the most biologically fit offspring as possible, because there is a limited amount that females can have. So they want to be sure that they have a male that has the best traits that can be passed on to the next generation. So females typically look at status. Status can mean a lot of different things. If you want to talk about humans, that could be if you're like part of a club or part of an organization, you have a good job, you're popular amongst your friends. Sometimes, like in high school elections, is not necessarily the person who's the smartest or the person who has the best plan. A lot of times, even in adult elections, it's a popularity contest. Who's the most gravity towards them? Well, also in the animal kingdom, whoever wins a fight is going to have a higher status. If a male moose defeats another male moose, the moose that won has a greater status than the loser. And so the greater the status, the more likely you are to reproduce. Also, females will key in on male secondary sex characteristics. These are characteristics that indicate high testosterone. Let's see. Do any of you want to, I know it's a kind of embarrassing question, but do any of you want to take a swing at what characteristics do males have that tend to indicate higher levels of testosterone? Guys, you're guys. I mean, Duncan, go ahead. Thank you for getting started. Okay, body hair. You have hair in your head. You have hair in your face. What else? Yes. Deep voice. Hi, how you doing? What else? Jasmine? Okay, muscles. Keep going. You're all right. Broad shoulders, chiseled jaw. Now, are those guarantees of high testosterone? No. We tend to associate one with the other. And when you associate high testosterone with these traits, you tend to associate fertility. This is not assured though, okay? It's kind of like a mirage. It's not a certainty. Just because a guy might have muscles and a deep voice and body hair and broad shoulders and a chiseled jaw doesn't mean he's fertile. But we tend to associate that. When you see that, when you see those traits, you don't know for sure if they're fertile or not, but we kind of interpret it as a good inclination that he is. All right, and then we have male sexual selection. This is least important because males produce sperm when they start puberty, and they will not stop until the day they die or they lose their testicles, whatever happens first. So they pretty much do have an infinite amount of gametes. In fact, the word sperm means seed. So want to try to plant as many seeds as possible. Now, the traits that males look for is youth. Why do you think that is? Now, it can kind of sound creepy, but biologically, that's a fact. Why do you think it's youth, Hannah? You have a lot more time to reproduce. Exactly. A woman who is 40 years old has much less time than a woman who's 20. So we all know that we are all born different. You guys, by our Bill of Rights, are civilly equal to each other. But biologically, no way. I was saying, no, I would never try to race Hartley on Bayshore. She'd kick my butt. She's a cross-country state champion. We're different in that way. We're all different in our own ways. So let's say you have an offspring that's not really biological. You're 20 years old. You have a child. It's really not that biologically fit. Good news. You have plenty of time. You have plenty of time to try to produce more offspring that are biologically fit. So youth is a big characteristic that they look for. And as far as secondary sex characteristics, they're going to indicate high levels of what's the main female hormone? Estrogen. Well, what characteristics tend to indicate like high levels of estrogen, which might influence fertility? Anyone? Jasmine? Okay. You ever heard the expression childbearing hips? It's a natural fact. It's a obvious fact that women have broader hips for childbearing. If you look at a male and female skeleton of a human, you can actually discern which one is the male and the female. Males tend to have narrower hips. Women tend to have a bit broader hips. Even the pelvic bones look a little different because women bear children. And so broader hips tend to be a sign of fertility. Also, fat deposits tend to be a sign of fertility. And here's one, clear skin. Because guys, you have testosterone that is really flowing through your veins right now as you go through puberty. You're kind of pimply. And that's a sign of testosterone. You all have heard of bacne. You get little zits on your shoulders and your back. It's part of the process of growing up. Girls don't get that a whole lot because they have high estrogen. Well, if girls had a lot more zits, that might be a sign of testosterone. And so that might mean not fertile. And I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying how it's perceived. But when you have clear skin, that's a sign of high estrogen. And a sign of high estrogen means a sign of high fertility. And so that's how it's perceived on like a instinctual biological level. And then one that's for both genders is facial symmetry. We have bilateral symmetry where your left side and your right side are almost identical to each other. If your face is like perfectly symmetrical, your jaws are even, your nose is even, your eyes are level with each other, your nostrils are even, your ears are even, that's perceived as being like more fit and fertile. Is it truly? No, but that perception can sometimes be our reality. Okay, and then the last thing I want to get to, which I have not been able to get to in my previous classes, is the runaway hypothesis. I want to talk about the peafowl. A male is a peacock, the female is a peahen. If you see a male peacock, they're a beautiful looking bird. and they have this plumage that they just show off to the ladies. The female is really not that special. She just kind of has some feathers, and she's mostly white feathered. She's really not that attractive, and it's not her job to be attractive. Her job is to select a mate. I mean, the male wants to reproduce. He just has to show off his tail feathers. So let's say, everybody, that these two breed with each other. And you got some eggs here. All right, they lay some eggs. And let's say that this egg here ends up growing into a male that has an even more prominent, bushier, bigger arrangement of tail feathers. Look at that. Much bigger than father. Females are loving these tail feathers. Oh my gosh, your tail feathers are so beautiful. They're the best tail feathers I've ever seen. Let's have some babies. And so they reproduce, and that leads to a male being born, growing up, and having an obscene amount of tail feathers. This is called having too much of a good thing. Let's say a predator comes into the picture. This peacock has so many feathers, and they're so all over the place that it can't fly away anymore. It can't run away anymore. And so what becomes of this peacock? It becomes food. Its feathers were too much of a good thing, and it became a detriment. So in the runaway hypothesis, it goes like this. Traits that are selected for that make individuals less likely to survive. Too much of a good thing. The feathers just became way too much, and they actually became so heavy they weighed the bird down. The bird can't fly anymore, and it can't escape predators. Bird's dead. Too much of a good thing. That's the runaway hypothesis. I saw this video, maybe I can pull up for you guys, where there are these two men, they're at the gym. One of them is kind of muscular. The other guy looks like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. He's so muscular. He has arms hanging out like this. And the less muscular friend has a sticker on his back. And they say, okay, grab the sticker. He easily just goes, grabs it. And then the huge muscly guy who can't even put his arms down because his muscles are so bulging, they put a sticker on his back, and he's like, you can't get it. He's like, and it's hilarious because you just can't reach it. That's a little bit too much of a good thing. All right, so that's the end of that lesson. If you're at home, you can sign off now. I'm going to end this video so I can start saving it.